Welcome to Project Cathay, where we ask the question, what if the British took over China after the Opium War? For this, we will have to do some changes to the events that took place. Alternate history begins in 1816 after the eruption of Mount Tambora. The world had a catastrophe on its hands. The year without a summer. Died and people froze, but what happened in Qing China was far worse. But to understand what happened in China, we have to understand the Chinese system of the mandate of heaven. The mandate of heaven was a system where things were good, everything was going well. The emperor was the right man for the job and no one should overthrow him. But when things are bad, like there are natural disasters, the gods are unhappy and they want you to overthrow the emperor. In the alternate history scenario, would be interpreted by the people of China to mean they should overthrow the unpopular Qing dynasty. The revolt would begin in 3 cities, Beijing, Nanjing, and Canton. Separate emperors would be proclaimed, forming the new dynasties of China, the later Ming, the later Sui, and the Canton dynasties. Also, Tibet and Mongolia would secede from the empire, with the latter becoming a Russian protectorate. The Qing dynasty would flee to Manchuria, and Russia would seize outer Manchuria, but a little more of it than in our timeline, and also puppet the Qing. The Qing dynasty would be a weak regime, and their attempt to ban opium in the 1830s would result in the 1939 Opium War with the British. The war would be an overwhelming British victory, but stubbornly the later Ming would fight to the end. As a result, the British resorted to an alternative means of winning the war. They reached out to the provincial governors, the later Ming, and promised them that wealth and modernization if they accepted the dissolution of the later Ming and to acclaim Queen Victoria as Empress. This would form what would be known in China as the Ying Dynasty, but be known in the UK as the colony of British North Cathay, Cathay being an old name for China. Of course, the other great powers would demand a conference at Vienna to decide how to carve up China. The conference would be led by Clemens von Metternich, the Austrian Chancellor. Meanwhile, the Dutch, who had just lost Belgium, swept in and recaptured Taiwan from the Canton dynasty. They would form the colony of Dutch Formosa, which would be separate from the Dutch East Indies. I will make a separate episode about Dutch Formosa. It will be decided that British would get most of China. Russia would keep the part it captured. However, Tibet will keep its independence in exchange for being neutral. It would gain parts of southern China, including Hong Kong, which would be named Baie des Perles. Meanwhile, the British would have to give Western Australia to a member of a specific royal family on the throne. More details on the next episode. The British would wage wars and China would be withdrawn.